Welcome to Stacking the Dealer. You're here with Anthony Birdsong and Josh Lestis. This is episode 2. We have a really exciting topic today for discussion.
I'm just happy we made it to episode 2. I
Me
mean,
too.
1 was a struggle. It took how many months to get to 1?
No. It wasn't months. We've been talking about this for years.
That's right.
I don't think it was months. I think it was years.
I think you're probably right. Several years. And so finally here we are. So, that first step's hard. We made it. And now here we are. We're just going to get better and better. I'm excited about it.
I agree. Today I was thinking about the topic for the podcast, and I don't know if you guys know this about Josh or not, but he used to have a pretty extensive sales training program, and it was really good.
I wasn't sure where this was going.
Oh, yeah. I had it for a really long time. He kind of tapered that off as he opened the car dealership, but I had a lot of fun using it, and it's not really a plug for it. It's just that I really enjoyed it. And I'll be honest with you, I really spend a lot of time trying to understand the sales process and how psychology relates to sales and, training my sales staff. And I believe it's one of the reasons that we're so successful. I think it's one of the reasons we sell so many cars. And if you watch Josh on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, you would understand that Josh is very good at sales. He's very good at being himself and very charismatic, and people are drawn to him. But I just finished reading a book called Poor Charlie's Almanac, and for those of you that don't know, it's a very difficult book to read. I struggled getting through it, but I pushed myself through it. It's about Charlie Munger, and that's Warren Buffett's partner, and all the different speeches that he did throughout the year. So they took the speeches and turned them into text and put them into a book, and you kind of read the speech, and then he talks about how he would change the speech to apply today and things of that nature. But anyway, the overall theme of the book is about how psychology has everything to do with everything we do. And so today I thought we would talk about the relationship between psychology and sales.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get it confused as well. Like we think about psychology when it comes to overcoming objections and planting seeds with the customer, but it also goes back to you as a human being. As a salesperson, you deal with a tremendous amount of rejection. And I truly believe that's where most salespeople fail. Our turnover rate in the auto industry for sales is about 100%. And I believe that one of the main reasons why is human beings. You want other human beings to like you. It's just in your nature. And when somebody rejects you, it's hard to deal with. And I think that's a big thing that a lot of salespeople have got to understand and, come to terms with and grips with. And it's probably subconscious, but you've got to understand that just because your customer tells you no doesn't mean they don't like you. So you've got to get over that, be able to handle the objection, deal with the objection, play the numbers game, so to speak. But that's a big part of psychology and sales that I think most people don't think of. They think of the customer side of it, but they're not, thinking internally. And then from a management aspect too is training and coaching your salespeople as individuals. And that's where, we could get into the DISC assessment and that sort of thing. But, back when I started in the car business, I hate that, but when I did, you just treated everybody the same. You trained everybody the same. It was what it was. And now, especially with the younger generation, you really got to tailor things to them as they're motivated and what excites them, because everybody's different. Some people are money motivated, some people are time off motivated, some people want to be motivated because they want to change their trajectory in life or their family history or whatever it is. But I think that's such a big thing too, is from a management level.
And all of those motivations are psychology based.
100%.
And they have to do specifically with the individual. And I think we touched on this last week just a little bit. And so actually, to be honest with you, just so everybody understands, Josh was one of the first people to start introducing me to the psychology behind a sale and leadership through the DISC assessment. A friend of Josh and I's, Chris, had transitioned the DISC assessment into animals. And the reason that they did this was because they found it was very difficult to remember letters, but it was easy to remember animals. So I remember we were at this thing, and Chris had separated the room into four categories. You had flamingos, gorillas, chameleons, and
Turtles.
turtles. I was a gorilla. Josh is a gorilla. I remember Erica being a chameleon. And what was really interesting to me about this is there's a big difference between the way I deal with things as a gorilla and Erica deals with things as a chameleon. Here's another interesting thing. I always look at Erica and associate her as a chameleon and me as a gorilla. And I don't ever forget it. And sometimes I know I'm a high red on the disc assessment. Erica is, see, I have to think about it for a minute. Erica is a green, okay? And so it takes a little bit of time for me to remember this, but I always remember she's a chameleon. And one of the reasons that I remember that, and I don't want to get super far off topic here, but I deal with things much differently than Erica, and it was causing some problems in our marriage because I would want her to do things the way that I would want them done. She would want to do them the way that she wanted them to be done, and we would butt heads. That's a very gorilla tendency. And I spent a lot of time talking with Chris about this, and he really got me in the mode of understanding Erica's role in the dealership, in our home, in our marriage is extremely important, and so is mine. And each person has to be allowed to play their role. That turned into reading the 5 love languages, and it completely changed my marriage. I'm telling you guys, it changed my marriage. Overnight, I mean, we read this book, and in a week, our marriage began to get stronger and better and happier. And so then what's really interesting was I started doing some research, falling down the rabbit hole, and I got into this thing of understanding, well, there's different languages for people in business, which again ties back to the DISC assessment. You have people that want praise, you have people that want money, you have people that want time off, you have, and there's all these different things that people are interested in that if you as a leader don't know how to give them those things, then you're not the best leader that you could be. And if you don't think that this transitions into sales, you are absolutely crazy. And I'm going to give Josh some time to talk about this before I go over some examples of sales and being an owner and being a leader and how these different things tied in and how just from going to that meeting with Chris, learning about the DISC assessment, reading 5 love languages, transitioning into that business, how that helped me become a better leader and a better salesperson.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because customers, right, all want different things. And just like your salespeople, you start talking, money to a salesperson when they're, a people pleaser or, what's the word I'm looking for where you like helping people?
Altruistic.
Yes, they're altruists. And you start talking money to them, and it's just in one ear out the other, right? Versus if you go to that salesperson and you go, hey, I tell you what, Mrs. Jones over there, if we can get this deal done, she's going to trade in that car that's about ready to break down, her tags are expired, the tires are bald, you're really going to be helping her out. Now a salesperson goes out there and he's motivated because he's going to be helping her out. Versus if you go out there and you go, hey, it's your next bonus car, you're going to make $1,000, go get it. They're like, okay. They're not motivated by that money. And a lot of times we think that salespeople are motivated by money. And I'll be honest, most of them are not. They're just not. They want money. They don't want to be broke, but that's not their main motivating factor.
Pause there for a minute. Do you know what the least motivating factor for people is?
Money.
Money.
Yeah.
Only 1% of the population is truly money motivated. And if you read books about psychology or the DISC assessment, you will find a lot of people think, I want money. But the people that think they want money and aren't willing to do what it takes to get money aren't actually money motivated. They're really not.
I'll tell you, that's what a lot of things boil down to, because it's easy to sit back and go, yes, I want to make more money. And of course that's true. But if you're truly motivated by money, you're coming in early, you're staying late, you're coming in on your day off. You are not like in some of those sales groups, right? Around every holiday. Hey, is your dealership closed on Memorial Day? Mine's closed. We're open half day, blah, blah, blah. And guys jumping in going, oh, terrible place. I'd never worked there. You're closed. And I'm thinking, if I'm a salesperson and you closed my store and did not give me an opportunity to sell a car, I'm pissed off at you. I'd rather be open. right? So it's like everybody is different, and you've got to figure out what that motivation is for every person. Because if you just talk money, money, money to all of them, you're not going to hit it home. And I've had I probably every position at some point in time quit to go work somewhere else and make less money. And you go, why? How is that possible? Well, it's because they're getting better training, or maybe better benefits, or maybe it's closer to home. Whatever it is, it is their thing. That person hit that button and I missed it. And you go, man, I missed it, because you lose a good employee because I'm not speaking their love language. And it's the same thing with your spouse, right? You start giving her gifts and she's not a gift giver. She's all about quality time, and you're never home, but you have a gift every time you come home. She's going, I don't give a shit,
Number one reason for divorce is that you don't fill your partner's love tank.
Yeah.
And so let's say, for example, when I first started my company, and some of you guys out there will understand this, I'm a high red, I'm a gorilla, I'm very heavily money motivated. And so everybody around me had to be money motivated, because that was the way I thought. So I'd take a person and I'd be like, no, you can't have the day off. I'm paying you $180,000 a year. And just like Josh said, that person who's a really good employee that I lost because I had poor leadership skills and abilities to communicate with people goes and works down the street for $90,000 a year at half the time. And so, we have to understand everything that happens to us, everything that we do relates back to psychology. Josh was given a really good example about a salesperson helping a customer versus making a deal with money. Just think about it like this. It's really simple. A customer walks in and they have a Trump hat on, and you walk up to them and you talk about how much you hate Trump. You're not selling them a car. It's just not going to happen. Now, these aren't as extreme. These examples that we're going to talk about today aren't as extreme as this, but I'm telling you, they have the same type of subconscious effects on your customers, while people who are selling them cars don't even know. And then you're sitting down at the desk and the customer's making every single excuse, surface level excuse, to get out of the dealership, when there is a deeper, much harder problem to overcome. That's why a lot of times when we come to do a TO, we fail. You can't fix what's already been done by the time it's time to do a TO. Unless, of course, it has something to do with money, which it very, very rarely does.
Yep. Yeah, and then the only way you can overcome that is an obscene amount of money, a monster discount or whatever, and it's like, then it's too late, and you don't want to get into that spot either. Most things I think come down to communication and, spouse. I had this conversation with Roman yesterday. He was like, Dad, I need to talk to you, and he's got this girlfriend, and they're getting their own apartment together, and, he's like, I know that guys like me and you we're hard to deal with. I go, yeah, first, congratulations. First step, you recognize that you're hard to deal with. And, he was talking about Avery, his girlfriend. And I said, buddy, you've got to pour into her love tank, because high intensity workaholics like us are going to make plenty of withdrawals. And it's just like your bank account. If you don't have enough deposits in there, one day you're going to go for a withdrawal and you're going to go, oh, shoot, I'm overdrawn, And I think he understood that analogy there. But it's true. You've got to pour into whatever their love tank is. And same thing with employees, same thing with customers. You make enough deposits, you've earned that right to take a withdrawal from that customer, asking them for an appointment or asking them to come in at a certain time, or, maybe delivering some bad news. Hey, your truck's not ready yet. Whatever it is. If you've made enough deposits, then you've earned that right to ask for a little bit of a withdrawal. But if all you're doing is withdrawing, you're going to have a problem.
I agree. So we talked about where we met at this conference, and this was about 10 years ago, and I had really started to get to a point where I wanted to make some changes in my life. I had built the business up and I was having some issues, and I was self-aware enough to understand that those issues were my fault, but I didn't necessarily have the tools to fix the issues that I wanted to address. So I started kind of seeking external help, looking at different motivational speakers and things of that nature. So I went to this conference, I met Josh, as well as a bunch of other wonderful people. And then things started to snowball, right? I left, I read the 5 love languages. I ended up starting to try to understand the psychology behind a sale. I started listening to Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Jim Rohn, and I'll be honest with you. I'm going to tell you where psychology in relations to sales, it just hit me all at once. I was driving to work one day. I was listening to Tony Robbins, and he was talking about mirroring. And as you guys can probably tell, you know, I talk loud. I have kind of a overbearing presence, and I'm driving to work, and he's talking about how if you meet somebody and you manner their mannerisms and their talk and the way they do things, they subconsciously will be drawn to you, and this could lead to more sales. And I thought to myself immediately, this is bullshit. It sounds like mumbo jumbo. Nobody can do this. How do you even mimic somebody? I'm not going to be in the dealership trying to copy what somebody's doing. I mean, all these thoughts are going through my head. I swear to God, this is a true story. I remember it like it was yesterday, okay? And the universe has a funny way of working. God has a funny way of working. So I come into work, and this African-American man comes in, and he's the sweetest man, but he talks really quiet like this and really slow. And instantly my brain said to myself, okay, Tony Robbins, you asshole, let's see if this is real, because this is going to be real easy for me to mimic, and it is the complete opposite of who I am. So I introduce myself, and I say, hi, I'm Anthony Birdsong. Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming into Hempstead Pre-Owned. And the whole time I dealt with him, that's exactly how I talked to him. Exactly the way he spoke, I spoke back to him. I'm telling you, up front, he said to me, I'm not buying a car today. I'm just looking. I'm doing some research. I do everything really slow, methodical. So he's giving me information. So I take everything really slow. Anything I don't know the answer to, I look it up. He's giving me this information. I'm listening to it and understanding. And so we come into the dealership and we sit down. I continued to talk to him just like this and giving him all the information that he needed. He gets up, he shakes my hand, and he starts walking to the door. And I thought to myself, fuck you, Tony Robbins. I knew you were an asshole. He turns around, comes back, and sits down at the desk. He goes, I have a few more questions. We start talking again. He gets up, he shakes my hand, he walks towards the door. He turns around again. Now I think, man, this is weird. This is really strange. We start talking a little bit more. He thanks me one more time, gets up to walk to the door, turns around again, comes back, and he says, you know what? I think I'm going to buy the car. My life changed on that day. That is a true story. And I said to myself, there is something to this. I am going to learn everything about it that I possibly can learn. I want to know it all. And I started reading all these books, not necessarily about sales. How to read people, how to influence people, how to persuade people, the psychology behind doing all those things. Robert Cialdini, Never Split the Difference. All these different books that have to do with the decisions that we make based on our psychology and how you can influence others based on their psychology. And to be honest with you, Robert Cialdini talks about it all the time. He says, you know, my books that I wrote, I never wrote as sales manuscripts, but they're probably some of the best sales training that you could ever get. And that was how I got introduced to psychology in relationship to sales. And that's how all of my salespeople are trained. And we sell 200 cars a month.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, you have to. If you want to get the best performance out of your staff, if you want to get the best performance out of your customers, you have to know how to communicate. And it's all psychological on that level. And I'm not saying you got to be manipulative, but you've got to be able to communicate on a level that they want to communicate, where you're talking their language. You know, if I'm speaking Greek and you're speaking Mandarin, we're going to have a hard time communicating. We may be able to get through some stuff with hand signals and, you know, I'm hungry, are you hungry, and that sort of thing, but we're not going to be able to have deep communications. You know, we're both speaking English to each other. We understand English. We comprehend English. Now we can get down to business. And it's the same thing with customers. It's the same thing with employees. You know, I think for a long time, we've treated our customers really good. For the most part, I think everybody tries to do that best they can. And then employees were just kind of an afterthought. And now I think you've got some, you know, a little forward thinking teams out there going, wait a sec, I also need to treat my employees like customers. we got to treat them good as well. And, then if I treat them good, they'll probably treat my customers good as well.
That's right. It's all about culture, right? Andy Frisella talks about it all the time, and Start With Why and Zappos. You read these books, you start to understand. Josh and I last week talked about, you have a lot of sales trainers out there that are talking about memorizing word tracks and all these other things. But let me explain something to you. When you learn math, right, you have two options. I can memorize the 1 + 1, or I can learn and understand why 1 + 1 = 2. My point to you is word tracks are helpful in certain situations, but they're not going to get you out of a really deep problem, right? You have to understand everything that's going on around you. And being in sales, becoming a great salesperson is understanding that you are signing up for a lifelong job of learning. You should never not be learning if you're in sales. You should always be wanting to get better and do better. And I'll be honest with you, when I was on the sales floor, and I sold cars for a long time at Hampstead Pre-Owned, I became so obsessive with selling and everything in relation to sales. I had a close rate of like 80%. 8 out of 10 people I closed. Now, being the owner, being the person that bought the cars, and being the decision maker, put me in a very unique situation to do that. So I don't want to make anyone think like, he's some kind of phenom or claiming to be. When I meet people, my goal is to develop an emotional connection with them. It is not to sell them a car. Whenever I'm inside of my sales office and I'm helping customers, my job, what I'm looking to do is get that person to like me. I don't give a shit about selling them a car, because if you build a garden, the butterflies will come. If you go out and you chase butterflies, you're not going to catch very many of them. So my idea and thought has always been, let me build a relationship with this person and the sale will come.
Yeah, so I've got 3 steps to the sale, and it's a lot of guys complicate it, 8 steps, 10 steps, 12 steps, whatever. And my 3 steps are get to know your customer, right? Step 1, land them on a car and then sit them down. And that's it, right? There's other nuances in between, but get to know your customer, build some rapport with them. Do your kids go to the same school? Do you know some of the same people? And I'm not saying be fake, but genuinely get to know your customer so that you know why they want to do business. Why are they getting a new car? Is it a need? Is it a want? Get to know that customer deeply. Land them on a car because, you can't sell them something unless you're on a car, and then sit them down. That's it. I think it's literally that simple.
Josh, talk about this for a minute. If you do a really, really good job at step 1, at building super strong rapport to the point where you really connect with this person, let me tell you something. You will find that money doesn't matter and the car actually doesn't matter that much. Now, you're probably not putting a soccer mom in a Corvette, right? It's probably not going to happen, but I'm going to tell you what. You could take a soccer mom who came in and said, I am totally opposed to minivans. I will never buy a minivan. And next thing you know, she's driving off in a minivan and thanking you very much.
Or you'll at least get a drive.
Yeah.
And that's all we want as a salesperson. All we want as a salesperson is an opportunity. Give me an at-bat. That's it, right? So if I can build rapport with somebody, one of the things I love is when you've got some rapport with somebody is when they call you up and they go, hey, Josh, man, I found a truck I like a little bit better down the road. I just wanted to call and let you know. Now, what did I just get? I got an opportunity. If I don't have rapport with them, they're buying the other truck. And then when I call them a day later, sorry, Josh, bought a truck somewhere else. But what they're doing is they're giving me, and maybe they don't even know, but they're giving me one more at-bat. Josh, you know what? This other truck, blah, 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 color, price, whatever it is. And now I've got an opportunity to try and overcome whatever objection it is that I need to overcome. You get a good rapport with the soccer mom and you go, I know you came in on the Tahoe, but let me drive you in one of these minivans. These things are incredible, and they're designed for all your kids and their friends and, going to the football game and the soccer game and the t-ball game. And you know what? Okay, Josh, take me for a drive. And you can make a joke of it. I tell you what, if you don't like it, I'll buy you a Frosty on the way back at Wendy's or, whatever it is. But now you've got a drive, which is an opportunity. And that's all we want as salespeople is an opportunity. You build rapport with somebody. It's just like selling your friend a car. They're going to call you first. They're going to call you last, even if they're going somewhere else. They're going to do that. And so if you can become friends with a customer, it's unbelievable the amount of things that can happen there. You know, if you fumble the ball during a service appointment, or you make a little mistake here, or you mess up their paperwork, they'll be just like your friend or your brother or your sister would. They'll be a little more understanding versus if you have no rapport with somebody that you just sold the car to, and their truck's 3 days late getting out of the shop, and you jacked up their title work and blah blah blah. They're not going to be understanding at all because you've got no relationship with them. So it really smooths things up, and some people are better at it than others, but if you're not good at it, you've got to be conscious of it. And that's the same thing with me. I'm conscious of it. And so I have to actively work and go, okay, I want to have that relationship with somebody. And one of the nice things, Anthony, about my social media, it's really interesting because I'm doing that at scale. The amount of people that call into the dealership and go, I'm only talking to Josh. And my salespeople have gotten pretty good at, hey, if he's tied up, let me gather some information and I'll work with him on your deal. But I bet you once a day, there's a guy going, nope, I'm only talking to Josh. And I don't know any of these souls. I've never met him in my life, but because of the deposits I've made online, they trust me. And sometimes they're calling me just to answer, some questions about a situation that they're in. It's not even to buy a car. They're like, dude, I trust your opinion. What should I do in this situation? And so that's interesting that I was able to do that at scale.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I can tell you a couple different examples, but one that I remember pretty clearly was a guy came in and him and I really hit it off. He was a person that wanted to do a lot of research, and I took all the time with him. It was a slow day. I spent about 2.5 hours with him measuring different cars and doing a lot of things, and he landed on this one type of car. It was a Subaru Forester, and he said he was going to do some research, and he found this one that was $1,000 cheaper than ours, which was pretty rare for this particular time in my life because I was always the cheapest. And he came back to me and he said, Anthony, I found this car, but you spent so much time with me and I really like you that I've just decided that I'm going to buy your car, and I don't even care that it's a little bit more expensive. And you will be surprised how often that happens when you're able to cultivate relationships. And I'll tell you the truth. I am shocked at how many people don't understand that control of a conversation happens from asking the right questions and being able to listen to the answers. It has nothing to do with talking. A person that speaks too much is never in control of a conversation. If I'm asking you questions, then I can guide the conversation where I want it to go. And so as a salesperson, the number one thing that we have to understand, besides building rapport, is that in order to control where we're going, I have to understand the process of asking questions. I have to be very good at asking questions. I have to be very good at listening. I have to be able to take the information that you've given me and give it back to you in the way that you want to receive it. It's about meeting the customer where they are. A lot of salespeople come in and they set appointments. Why? To make their day better. And then they don't get any shows. Listen, when we set appointments at Hampstead Pre-Owned, we're setting those appointments to make our customers' lives easier, not to make our lives easier. And the customer doesn't care about what you want. They don't care about making your life easier, and they shouldn't have to. They're coming to your place of business. They're coming to do business with you. You should meet them on their terms. And again, this all kind of ties back to the psychology of sales and understanding humans and human nature. And again, this is Charlie Munger's book. I mean, I'll tell you, right before I read Poor Charlie's Almanac, I read this book called Outwitting the Devil, and Josh and I talked about it a lot. And I'm reading this book, Poor Charlie's Almanac, and I'm struggling. And the thing that came to me in my mind was, there's something the devil doesn't want you to know in this book. You need to keep reading it, right? And so what I did was, I got myself some headphones, and I downloaded the book on Audible, and I listened to it as I read it, like I used to do prior to this. And because of the way he speaks, I was able to understand the book much better. And I'm sorry to get off on this tangent again, but at the end of the book, he goes over the 25 missteps of human nature that tie back to psychology. And it is one of the most beautiful things that I have ever read in a book. I swear to God. And so, again, and there were a lot of things that tie into Sales, right? There's even a part where you were talking about earlier how fear of rejection. This is a psychological thing that prevents us from doing what we're supposed to do.
Yeah,
And so
right.
this fear of
How do I not get rejected?
yes.
I don't do it.
No,
If I
that's right.
never ask the customer to buy my car, I can never get rejected. If I
Yeah.
never ask that girl to go out on a date, I can never get rejected.
But if you don't ask her, you never
Yeah.
get the date either.
That's right. Yep.
At least if you ask her, you have a chance.
That's right. That's right. It's funny. I think was it Tony Robbins said the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions. And I had a buddy of mine, Bart Nolenberger, which actually I think you know Bart. He used to say that all the time, and I never quite fully understood it. But what can I learn from this versus why is this happening to me? Kind of that victim mentality and learning versus losing. And that's something I always used to talk to Roman about. In wrestling, he'd lose a match, and I said, "Well, buddy, you didn't lose. What we learned is we need to be in better shape, or we need to be able to handle that single leg, a little bit better. We need to be able to defend this a little bit better." That's what we learned. So it's always interesting going back to that. Am I going to be a victim and things are happening to me, or am I going to use that as an opportunity to get better? All right, cool. This, sure, this happened, but I learned from it, and now I can do this better, and I won't let that happen again next time, or whatever it is. And you look at all these things as opportunities rather than something's happening to you and it's bad, and you're this terrible victim out there that the world's out to get you.
What's Jocko say? He always says, "That's good," right?
Yeah, I love that one. That's good.
I crashed my car. Great.
Good.
My day is going.
Good.
I dropped the football when I was going for a touchdown. Good.
Good.
Everything is an opportunity. Everything is right here. 95% of what you do in life is all up here and how you see what's happening to you, right? It's not your conditions that make you who you are. It's your decisions. And so for me, every single day I wake up with a decided advantage. I am going to do everything in my power to give myself an advantage over my competition. I am going to work out. I am going to learn my market. I am going to master my trade. These are all decisions that I make to have a competitive advantage over everyone that's out there. Yeah. And it's amazing to me how many people don't want to have an advantage.
It's not that they don't want to, because I think you go back to everybody says they want to make money, right? But are you willing to do it? Or everybody says I want to lose weight, but are you willing to do it? I think it's whether or not they turn that desire into discipline. I want this, but okay, but now are you disciplined enough to be able to make it happen? And that's where people fall off with every aspect of everything.
Discipline is the bridge between the person you are and the person you want to become.
Yep, 100%. Yeah. It's funny because I had told Roman a while ago, and I actually wrote this in Sharpie on his mirror, because nothing was ever his fault. Typical teenager, but nothing was ever his fault. And I said, buddy, I'm going to tell you 3 words that changed my life. These 3 words that changed my life are, it's my fault. No matter what's happening in my life, it's my fault. I can't blame anybody for anything else. It's my fault. Now, how do I handle it? How do I fix it? How do I get better from this? Whatever it is, but I don't place any blame on anybody, no matter what. It all falls back on me. And when you change that mindset shift, now all of a sudden you're not a victim anymore. I'm learning, I'm getting better, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I put it on my shoulders. It's all my fault. And that's something that it probably in my mid-20s really was a paradigm shift for me when it came to looking at life in general.
That's exactly when it happened to me. Who gave me the book Extreme Ownership?
Was that me?
That was you.
Oh.
And that's a book that changed my life.
Yeah.
Every single thing that happens is my fault and my responsibility to fix. Will Smith says it a little bit different, but almost the same way. It may not be your fault that your daddy was a drug addict, but it's your responsibility to fix it. And I live by that, but I do it a little bit different. Everything is my fault. If my wife and I get into a fight, it's my fault. If my son and I get into an argument, it's my fault. If my son goes out and does something he's not supposed to do, it's my fault. If we didn't sell cars, it's my fault. And here's the deal, right? If it's my fault and I always take responsibility, then where does the word responsibility come from? I am able to respond. Response able. Right? If I tell you it's your fault, then I've given you my power because I'm no longer able to respond.
Yep. Yep. It's powerful. I mean, as a leader, super powerful. As just anybody in life, super powerful. There's way too many victims out there that the world is just happening to them, and I get it. Shit happens, dude. I mean, life sucks sometimes. There is no doubt. We've all, Anthony, I know you and I have been through that. It just fucking happens. But if you take responsibility for it, it changes the way your mind will allow that to affect you. And I think that's mission critical.
It's like, uh, what is it? Easy times create easy men. Easy men create hard times. Hard times create hard men. Hard men create easy times. And it's this cycle that happens. And it's so unfortunate because, my son is cut from the same cloth as me, yet we're two totally different people, right? You take a lion and you raise him in captivity, and you take a lion and you raise him out in Africa. They both look exactly the same. If you put Blake next to me, he looks exactly like me, but man, it is two totally different animals. And I talk to him about this all the time, and it's just difficult because look, Gary Vee says it. Gary Vee says being a great parent is all about controlled pain. If you're very good at controlled pain, you're going to be a good parent. I am terrible at controlled pain. I want to take all the pain away from my kid and carry it on my shoulders. And anytime anything goes wrong, I'm the biggest asshole in the world. And so it's interesting. I don't know how we got talking about that, but
oh man, we could go down the whole rabbit hole of parenting, right? And how difficult that is. And, you're going to have days.
Dealership is no different. See, what's interesting about it to me is when you run a dealership, when you're an owner, it's like you're the daddy of the dealership, right? And everything is your fault. If you don't see it that way, you're going to fail. And the reality is, this comes back to psychology. You have to understand how to lead. You have to understand how to talk to the people that work for you. You have to understand how to incentivize them. And it all has to do with this. It comes back to psychology.
Yep. I could not agree more. And then as a leader, even as, just an employee or whatever, if you can understand that and wrap your head around it, you'll be a better parent. You'll be a better husband, better wife. You'll be a better manager. You'll be a better person to yourself if you can get that psychological down, that personal accountability, the responsibility, and then that discipline to work on the things that you need to work on. Do you need to go on a diet? Do you need to do some sales training? Do you need to, whatever it is that is one of your weak spots, do you have the discipline to fix that? Because it's easy to sit back and go, hey, I want to make more money. Hey, I want to lose weight. The hard part is, putting the work in. And that's where most people fail. I tell people, again, so going back to my three things, I like to keep things simple, right? It's the reason why people fail is because they don't have that discipline. So you've got to, step one is figuring out what you want. Step two is doing the things it takes to get what you want. And that's where most people fall off, is at step two, where 99% of the people who are left fall off is step three, which is doing it every day. I can go to the gym on January 2nd, but are you still there on October 2nd? That's the thing, and that's where most people fail. You've got to be able to do it every day and have the discipline to do it every day.
I agree.
Obviously, we've gone down a couple different little rabbit holes, but it's interesting how it touches every aspect of our lives. And you can go down little branches of whatever it is. But at the end of the day, if I want to be the best husband, if I want to be the best father, if I want to be the best salesperson, the best, whatever, it doesn't even matter if you're in sales or not. I just want to be the best version of myself, whatever that means, whatever that looks like. You've got to have the ability to do that job, which, especially when we're in sales, means you need to know how to relate to people. You need to know how to, relate to yourself. Your managers, I guess we talked about managers managing salespeople, but imagine if you're a salesperson and you've got two sales managers. Well, guess what? They're both different. Now I know how to work one the way I need him to work my deal versus the other one. If I've got one that's motivated by money, one that's motivated by helping people, I'm going to, when I'm trying to work my deal with them, I'm going to tailor my pitch to that manager a little bit different. So it's interesting. I didn't even think about that. But as a salesperson, you've got the customer over here, and then you've got the manager over there, and it's your job to kind of broker that deal best you can. And if you don't do a good job with the salesperson or with the manager, your likelihood of closing that deal goes down. If you're good on one and the other, it's still not great. If you're good on both, then your likelihood is is significantly higher. So it's interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but the psychology piece of it is just huge. Knowing where you're at, and I think where some people forget is to, pay attention to themselves. Like we just got done talking about, because that's super important. You're the most important person in your world. If you can't figure out how to motivate yourself, if you can't figure out how to take personal accountability, personal responsibility, you're going to fail, and and then it's easy to go back and go, my boss didn't like me, or, this was against me, the world, and your mind, it will play tricks on you. It will justify everything. Yeah, you're right, Josh. They were against you from the beginning. They didn't like you and blah, blah, blah. And you're just going to be like, yeah, that's right. And you're going to accept that. That's, the devil talking in your head a little bit there. But when you go, no, you know what? It doesn't matter what happens or how it happened. It's my fault. I'm going to handle it. I'm going to get better. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to, do whatever it is. And, I think that's just a critical piece to business, to sales, to relationships, parenting, absolutely everything.
There's so many different things that you touched on there: confirmation bias, personal responsibility, accountability. Every single self-help book that I've read ever in my life starts with you. One of the greatest things that you can have is the ability to analyze yourself, being self-aware, and understanding that your mind is going to play tricks on you, just like Josh says, through confirmation bias. And again, this ties into sales. Here, let me tie this into sales for you so you guys understand. In the first 3 seconds that you meet somebody, they're going to make a decision about you. They're going to decide whether they like you, dislike you, and the rest of the time that they're with you, their mind will continue to reinforce whatever decision they made in the first 3 seconds. That's confirmation bias. Period, point blank. That is why the greeting is so important. It is so important that you meet your customers with a smile and warmth and compassion, and in a way that does not seem scripted and seems absolutely intentional, because in the first 3 seconds, the decision is made on whether or not they will do business with you. And the whole time that they're with you, the rest of the time, they're going to be confirming that with themselves. And a TO is not going to help you. A manager can't save you. That's it. The first 3 seconds are the most critical part of the sale. And again, so we can tie every single thing back to psychology. I don't care what anyone says. The most important thing that I can leave you guys with today is this. If you want to be the best version of yourself, if you want your team to be the best version of yourself, you need to pick up some books and you need to study how psychology ties into different things. You can start with easy books. Never Split the Difference is a great book. It's about negotiating, has a lot to do with psychology. And so I just think that it's really important to understand, if you're an owner, if you're a leader, if you're a business person, if you're a salesperson, that you need to continually develop your skills and continuously learn throughout the rest of your life.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, who was it that talked about that? I don't know who it was, but I'll take credit for it for now. But if you are not learning, we were talking about experience in the car business. If you learned a lot and you worked on yourself for the first year that you were in the car business, you have 1 year of experience. If you never did anything past that, but you're still in the car business for 5 years, you don't have 5 years of experience. You've got 1 year of experience 5 times, and it's not quite like that, quite as simple as that, but it's a little bit true. If you're not constantly working on your craft and getting better, and you've got to adapt to the times as well. The consumers want different things and their behaviors are different and technology is different, and you're not getting better at whatever it is that you need to get better at, then everybody else is going to keep passing you by, because somebody out there is going to be motivated enough to change.
The most fucking depressed that I ever am in life is when I'm not growing. For the last 5 years, I have been on a journey of growth, 1% better each day. And I'm telling you, it's inevitable when you get on that journey that you're going to fall off. It's going to happen. It's just going to happen. And what's crazy is when it happens, you come back so much stronger and so much more disciplined. When you live a disciplined life, you can't live without discipline. Let me tell you something. I am on the last 2 days of 75 hard, okay? And I talk to Josh about this all the time. I basically live hard with the exception of 2 things. I read every day. I only drink water. I never drink alcohol. I never do drugs. I diet every day. I intermittent fast, so I only eat between 12 and 8. That is a standard practice in my life. So 4 or 5 of the things out of 75 hard, I live every day of my life, period. There is no missing. That's who I am. Now, what was I struggling with? Outside exercise for 45 minutes, fucking miserable. Miserable. Let me tell you something. Over the last 75 days, I have fallen in love with it. I don't know how many of you are smokers or have ever smoked, but you know how when you light that cigarette up and you go outside and it's like a release, it's a break from the world, right? That's what I feel like when I go for my 45-minute walk every night at 8:30, 9 o'clock. I put my headphones in and I just zone out, and I kind of meditate and think about everything, and obviously getting strict about the inside workout. But my point is this, you know, and Josh and I have talked about this a lot of times. A lot of people fail at 75 hard because they try to do everything all at once. You know, I'm going to the bar and I'm eating like a pig and I drink soda and I don't exercise. And then tomorrow I want to cut all these things out of my life and start, and you fail, right? Because it's really hard. For me, I'm telling you, I went through this 75 days and I don't feel like it was hard at all because I have been doing most of it already. And by the time I was at day 30, day 35, when I got the outside exercise down and I had done a couple of nights in the rain, you know, you go outside and you do a 45-minute exercise in the rain and you start feeling like fucking David Goggins in your head. And it's like, man, I wish it fucking rain every day so I can be a hard motherfucker. All these people that are driving by looking at me running or walking in the rain that are going home to relax. It just gives you this sense of pride. So if you start living a disciplined life, you're going to fall off. But when you come back, you'll come back stronger. Till ultimately, hopefully, you come back one day and you never fall off.
Yeah, that's the goal. It's funny you said that because I was thinking, I don't know if you remember when I did Murph every day for a month. It was in January, and I'm doing outside runs. It's snowing. It's freezing cold. And I'll tell you, that was probably, that month, I felt like I was 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Like nothing could fuck with me. I'm outside every day running for a mile, doing 100 pull-ups, 200 sit-ups, 300 air squats, running for another mile, all before I got my day going. And it was snowing.
That's fucking life-changing. That's life-changing shit. You want to talk about changing your life? Start your day with something you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Admiral McCraven wrote a whole fucking book about it. It's called Making Your Bed. Start your fucking day with something you don't want to do and you will change your life. Your life will change. If you start to master that little voice in your head, going back to outwitting the devil that's in your mind that tells you, eat that donut, sleep in a little bit later, don't do the shit that you're supposed to do. You master that voice in your head, you've developed discipline, the world is your fucking oyster. You can have anything that you want.
I love it. I love it. I think that's a great place to end, Anthony. I think the psychology aspect of things, the self-discipline, I think all that can really help change and affect people's lives. And, and we've talked about it 100 times, but it doesn't relate to just sales. It relates to personal life, business life, absolutely everything. So if you can figure out how to master that discipline, master that psychology, figure out where you're not great and get better at it, and then accept personal responsibility for everything that happens in your life, there you go. World is your oyster, like you said.
All right, Joshy. I'll see you next week.
Yes, sir.